Is nu metal having a renaissance? Which bands are leading the charge of this new era of metalcore? And what the hell is pissedcore? And will I ever get that Tyler Denham vocal feature? Find all that out and more on today's episode of The Metal Lounge. I've been doing some thinking recently, man. So you know you had the big six of nu metal back in the day. Who do you think are the modern big six nu metal bands? Because I've got some thoughts of my own, but who comes to mind? So I don't even have to say them, like, you know, the Linkin Parks, the Limp Bizkits, those are the sorts. Like, who comes into your mind as soon as you say like modern Linkin Park, for example?
Are you thinking like modern nu metal as in like the new metalcore type stuff, where it's like the heavier side of stuff, not bands trying to imitate nu metal?
No, I do want to come on to that later.
Bands trying to imitate nu metal?
I mean like a bit of both, like, okay. But who's the most influential? Like, so there's two conversations to this actually. There's who sounds like those bands, who's kind of copying off those bands, going into subgenres, and who's trailblazing this new metalcore genre.
Sure.
So I'm more interested in sort of the trailblazers, but also I do want to come on to copycat bands like Fake Deftones bands. But yeah, so who off the top of your head, or I can give some examples.
Yeah, I'd say the first one that came to my head when you said sounds like Linkin Park was Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that,
because they're like the band that are trying, maybe not trying the hardest, but the band that naturally sound a lot like Linkin Park.
Yeah.
They tick that same like box of being quite commercial while also being still cutting edge and genre defining, which is quite a hard thing to like align to toe.
It really is.
And they even had some songs, especially like on their last few releases, that sound like Linkin Park. Like Teardrops was the one everyone said this sounds like a Linkin Park song, for example.
They've been doing that for 10 years now, because when Sempiternal came out, I thought this sounds like nu metal, especially like Sleepwalking. That's not too different from Teardrops.
Very true.
And so they've been doing it for 10 years, but I think because they've been going for 20 plus years, you don't lump them in with the nu metal core, because they're kind of bigger than that now. They're like a commercial, like popular, transcendent band, which is what nu metal bands were back in the day. So I think they are a perfect example of leading the torch for like the Linkin Park. So I think we've kind of scratched that off.
Okay.
And some honourable mentions for Linkin Park that I thought of. So bands that sound like Linkin Park that do the sound well but aren't trailblazers. Danger Kids, I think, were a good one.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
They're fucking awesome, man.
Do they still exist?
So Tyler Smith, he's the songwriter for Falling in Reverse, for Arc Revel.
Yeah, I know he does loads of stuff.
He's an amazing songwriter.
Yeah.
So that's his jam at the moment. I think it's his project. So it will surely come back at some point. But right now he's earning the big bucks with Falling in Reverse.
Yeah. Danger Kids were literally like the Linkin Park like 2.0 vibe. Like Hybrid Theory, Meteora era Linkin Park translated to like 2013 they started something like that.
Yeah,
like that sort of era, or maybe 2015, or maybe even sooner. I can't remember. But that
it's around that era.
Yeah, that sort of like that was like the natural progression of Linkin Park, with more like modern sounding bits to go along with it.
It's weird, like usually it's a bit of an insult to say like a band sounds exactly like that band. It's a bit of a dig, but I think when it's a band like Linkin Park, when they're so massive, they're so influential, like there's a thirst for it, isn't there? Like people want more of that stuff, and I think Danger Kids did it really well actually. Like they're not like reinventing the wheelhouse, like they're reinventing the wheel, whatever. I can't get my fucking analogies right, man. But they're not reinventing the wheel, but they do a really solid job. It's obviously nice production, which picked up the ears of other bands and stuff to nab Tyler. But I think they do it really well. Another band in the same vein, I don't know if you heard of Palisades.
Aware of them, haven't listened to them.
So yeah, they started off a bit more sort of pop punky, but they've gone proper like nu metal, and like I think they do a really good job. I think anyone that's looking for Linkin Park style bands of their subgenre of nu metal, like Palisades are a good one to go for.
What sort of like instrumentally or like lyrically, musically, what do they do that sounds similar to Linkin Park?
The vocals sound a lot like Chester, and the songwriting is it's more like metalcore, like new metalcore.
Sure.
But yeah, it's not super heavy as well. It's got, I don't think it has rap, but it's like the clean Chester vocals kind of sound similar as well.
Yeah.
I'd definitely say check them out. Like they've got some really nice songs, but it is a Linkin Park copycat band, much like Danger Kids, but I think they deserve a shout out for like bands that sound like Linkin Park. But yeah, is there any other bands you can think of that sound like Linkin Park that you
Oh man,
think
it's a tough question. Not a lot comes off the top of my head. I feel like when I picture Linkin Park, it's such a specific sound, but also a varied one at the same time. So I feel like a lot of bands were inspired by Linkin Park. Therefore, you could argue so many different bands did have that level of inspiration. I feel like any band that has rapping in, you can sort of cop out and say that was inspired by Linkin Park, or maybe even Rage Against the Machine, like going back further.
They were totally inspired by Linkin Park.
I mean, it's either Linkin Park or it's Rage. Yeah. So no, I don't have a lot. I can think of in the new metal core, which we're going to go on to, sort of genre. I can see elements where that Linkin Park-esque stuff has sort of carried forth. But I don't know. Do you have any more bands in mind that you're specifically thinking of for this then?
Off the top of my head, for Linkin Park, no. I think those were the main three. Like you hit the nail on the head with Bring Me. I think they are the modern day Linkin Park, and they are the biggest band in modern metal. And obviously, of course, Linkin Park are the biggest band of new metal. So there's some good similarities there, and they're both like. They're not making the same album twice. They're always progressing their sound. I think Bring Horizon even more than Linkin Park, to be honest. Like Linkin Park. Well, actually, Linkin Park always progressed it, but not in the way people wanted. Yeah. Whereas Bring Horizon, like they're giving people what they don't even know what they want. They're kind of ahead of the curve, and they're respected as trailblazers, and people kind of trust them with their vision, and they're following them, which is amazing. For them.
Yeah, that's totally true. Okay, so then moving on to the new metalcore stuff. Then, do you have? You asked the question about like the top 6.
Yeah, I want to stay on this.
Do you have that for them as well?
For who?
For the new metalcore stuff. Do you have like a top, you said like the top 6 bands?
Yeah. So what I meant is like who is who. So we've got Linkin Park. So we've got Linkin Park. We said Bring Me the Horizon.
Oh, I see what you mean. You want an equivalent for each one.
I want a top 6. Like this is my main point.
Okay. Well, what top 6 are you doing for the new metal? Out of Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Deftones, System of a Down, Korn.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It doesn't even need to be said. They're that iconic. Like you don't even need to think about it.
So you want an equivalent for each one?
Yeah. So let's go to Limp Bizkit now. So what bands kind of remind you of Limp Bizkit that have that same rap rock, a similar aesthetic? You know, any bands that come to mind?
That's a tough one. Rap rock bands of that sort of vibe. There's got to be some. Probably I don't know them.
Ocean Grove, I think, go a little bit Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, a little bit at times, but they went a bit more like singy in places, a bit more like screamy. I guess it is a bit more modern. That sort of like more up and coming band, Black Gold, British band, give me sort of Limp Bizkit vibes
definitely,
as well.
Yeah, a bit lean more into hip hop, I would say. Sure. And they've also got the Masks, which could also be a Slipknot, but definitely sonically more Limp Bizkit.
Sure.
The main one that I thought of is Amur. That they've been going a while.
Interesting.
Like, maybe not like
equally controversial and hated. Maybe front man who gets in trouble.
He is so inspired by Fred Durst.
Yeah.
Maybe not historically because they were molded in deathcore, but their latest stuff, their latest album, and even the one we listen to a lot, Look in the Mirror, like it's very new metal. It's got the iconic guitarist like Wes Borland, Josh Travis, also got a high profile pioneer of gent. Wes Borland was like pioneer of like metal guitarist. It's got like that, like you know that Hey Man, heard you're a band. Like that could be Fred Durst, man. It could. I think that latest album especially. So it'd be interesting to see where they go next. I think they could hit the jackpot. Like, I know they're already a big band, but if they lean more into that Limp Bizkit style and sound, like they could even
be interesting to see if they break through more into the
I don't think they will.
Alternative.
I think they're a very like they like being a unique sort of band, but there's definite similarities, and I'd hand it to them. I don't think there's any competition really.
That's very interesting.
Attila, actually, they could be a good one. Hated front man, rapping. Metal. I think Amur take it for
arrogant.
me. Yeah, I feel like Attila like have kind of lost a little bit of like credibility recently.
I don't know why.
Stuff.
I haven't been up to date with them.
I think they've been releasing stuff. They have a song called like Handshakes with Snakes. Like my band got on a reaction channel for him, and I was watching that. So he does like YouTube stuff and reactions. They recently did like not recently, maybe about a year ago now. They did a tour for their Party. Is it Party with the Devil? The
album 10th anniversary tour.
The 10th anniversary tour of that. And they're still releasing stuff as of like a year ago, but it's just not quite hitting as much as it has done in the past.
Yeah, I think they probably are even closer than Amur to Limp Bizkit in that case then, in terms of like musicality and like stylistic vibes, I think as well. Okay, interesting. For Korn, who would you go for? Because I'm thinking have you got one in mind first?
I do have one in mind.
Because I'm thinking my criteria is like a vocalist who goes really sort of like crazy. One of the ones that I have
creepy. They've got to be creepy.
Yeah, I don't know too much about this band, but from the few songs I've heard, I was thinking Paleface Swiss. That band give me like a lot of. They're not quite big enough, but they give me that sort of same vibe as Korn, lyrically and like vocally, especially.
I can hear that. I haven't heard a lot of them, but what I have heard, it does lean very heavily into like kind of
chaotic,
hardcore,
panicked like.
It's
vocals.
Kind of more core though. It's like hardcore, deathcore. Like it's very core related. But I mean, Amur and Attila are as well. True. But even more so, I'd say. Like I don't know, like that deathcore, hardcore. It's got such like a stink to it, hasn't it? It's like you can sort of tell when a band's like in that world. Whereas I wouldn't say it used to be the case for Amur, but not so much now.
Okay.
And especially with like how like what Josh Travers has brought to the band, and then Attila, they are quite core, but they also have their own. There's something fresh about them. Whereas like no disrespect to Paleface Swish, like that they are sort of a bit more generic, a bit more in the core world in my eyes. Don't know.
Who have you got for Korn then?
A band I don't know that well, but a band called Tala. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, they have the vocalist who did that stuff on YouTube and that.
Yeah, the Musician's Mansion.
Yeah.
That they, I listened to some of their stuff today actually when doing some research, and they really nail the vibe. They're not like super spot on, but his growls, his like lows sound really similar to Jonathan Davis. They're very fresh, very exciting. They got the creepy aesthetic.
He's a lot, but like really like he's like quite a big performer on stage, isn't he? As well, from what I know. Like, so I can imagine that being a sort of similar vibe.
They've got
embodying a character.
They've got a real big buzz on the scene as well. They've got like 100,000 monthly listeners, which is quite a lot for how like heavy they are and stuff. I could see them getting bigger and bigger. There's a big buzz about them. But yeah, have you heard of a band called Chaosium?
No, never heard of that.
Chaosium. They sound exactly like Korn.
Really?
They're like Korn 2.0.
No, really?
But it's like so much like Korn. It's like, oh,
too
come
much,
on.
Too much?
It's too much. He like sounds exactly like Jonathan Davis.
Really?
Yeah. They're quite a funny one, but I think they'd win if we were going purely off like sonically how it sounds.
Yeah, you sort of want an evolution of
but
it.
Yeah,
that's like
I think like
for.
we're giving our top 6 spots to bands that sort of are carrying that fresh trailblazing flag that nu metal brought originally on its first wave. So I think Tala, I'd have to give that to.
So who we got left? Slipknot, System of a Down, and Deftones.
Exactly.
So Deftones, I think, is an easy one. I think I already know who yours is going to be. Loathe?
Yeah. 100%. They are the best fake Deftones band going. I love Loathe.
And they're improving on the sound. Like they're making it their own. They're not copying, but they're clearly taking inspiration. Like, I think they are one of the best examples on the list of bands that clearly took inspiration, but also aren't just a copycat. They're like really pushing it in a modern way.
I think they got the balance just right. Because they were kind of formed in that deathcore world, but even back when they were doing deathcore, it had a bit of freshness to it, and you know the production and the artfulness of it. Like that album is phenomenal. I let it in and it took everything. Oh my god! And even the artwork is inspired by Deftones, and I think Deftones even asked them to go.
I was about to say, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if we know that from like a public source, or if that's because we know someone who knows someone. So I don't know if that's like supposed to be like public knowledge.
Who cares?
But yeah, no, I think two of them were asked to join Deftones, weren't they?
I think it led to one of them splitting from Loake.
It was around like COVID time, wasn't it? So that's why it didn't happen or something like that.
It's because Steph is afraid of flying and he doesn't want to fly anymore. And there's a whole COVID injection jabs, and he was like anti-COVID and stuff. So it was all that sorts. But yeah, you can tell Deftones respect them. Like they went straight to Loake and were like, "Yo, you can do this shit better than us now. Like, you come up on stage, you can do it."
Okay, that was an obvious one then. The one I'm thinking, the last two I've got are the hardest ones to fill. I feel like Slipknot and System of a Down seem quite difficult.
They're definitely
very
hard.
unique.
Yeah.
System of a Down, God, I don't even know who would be equivalent
There's
to them.
no one that
nowadays.
sounds like them, because like even more so than any of the other bands, they have the most unique sound.
Super unique vocals.
It shouldn't sound good.
Super unique, like just songwriting in general. I was thinking, not even really that close, but like lyrically maybe Straight from the Path has like, and like technically has like little bits in it, but nowhere near enough to like put it out there.
No.
But I can't think of anyone better.
Well, let's have a spitball. Like the only one that comes to me is a band called Omerta. Have you heard of them?
No.
They're quite small, but I have played with them before.
Okay.
That it's got like, it just goes to so many different directions, that one song, Animasaurus or something. It goes from like punk into like really high pitched vocals and goes like out of time, swallow the black pig, feel. Oh, like
that sounds nothing like System of a Down. Sounds like Limp Bizkit.
I'll play it to you. I think that they kind of embody this chaos that System of a Down embody as well. But yeah, it's really hard because, you know, Serge is such a unique
I think that's
voice.
what it is. You have such a
it's like Armenian
and
music
Dean,
as well.
Does Dean Malenko do the vocals? Or is he the other guitarist?
I think so. Yeah,
both of their vocals are super unique,
yeah.
and the style of it as well is very, very unique. You don't
back
hear
in
many
the
people
day,
sing like that.
they're not modern by any means, but Maximum the Hormone were quite similar to System of a
Yeah,
Down.
yeah,
Like,
that's a good show.
They're one of the only
Japanese
bands.
System of a
Are they
Down.
still going?
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, they played. I mean, when I was living in Japan, they were playing locally, like while I was there.
Oh, really? Did you see
last
them?
year. No, I didn't. I annoyingly had to work,
wanker.
but I wanted to go and see them. Yeah, and they had a really good support act as well. Yeah, they're still huge. They still play festivals and stuff. They're big in Japan.
They could be a shout. I don't hear much about them from UK now. Like
in the West,
I feel
they're not
like
really. They
of,
peaked with being on like the Death Note anime intro back in 2006.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
their like their Western expansion.
Yeah, what a fucking
I actually bought the CD that had that song on. I bought that at Tower Records the first time I went to Japan. When I was 19. I've still got it at my parents' house somewhere. A Japanese.
so cool.
I can't remember what it's called. Like.
They're the only band I can think of that are like ever since listening
Close
to
to
System that sounds similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a band called Newcomer. I don't know if you've checked them out. They had a Peter Rono feature.
Okay.
Kawanashi even. There's a lot of maybes.
They're like uniques in a different way. Their vocal styles go in a different way. Okay, what about Slipknot then? Slipknot's an impossible one. I feel like I think Slipknot are musically a lot of bands take after them. Like I think.
I want to go into this afterwards about the heavy side of new metalcore because I think Slipknot were the pioneers of that.
I think if you listen to Slipknot's self-titled album, which came out in 1999, you could play that next to like a new metalcore song from like 2024, and if you ignore the production differences, they're songwriting wise very similar.
There's so many bands that sound like Slipknot, but my pick is actually a bit like, you probably won't agree with it, but purely for the aesthetic and the masks and how like cult like they are. Sleep Token.
Yeah, I mean, look wise, 100%. Musically, though, no, not even close.
Like, they're still like heavy in places.
Not even close.
But I think like if you're looking at like
aesthetically, sure, and like the buzz around them and like the way they kept it
how
secret
influential they are
in
still this sort of new metalcore scene. Would you call them new metalcore?
No,
or they're kind of like baddiecore or whatever you call it, like, which is kind of a subgenre of Deftones core.
They're more getting way too granular.
Fake Deftones.
I'd say they're more just like metalcore meets pop. In like if you're keeping it like simple, like they're not really. They put on like.
Well, baddiecore is like an actual thing.
Show me a Sleep Token song that sounds like Eyeless or like Spit It Out or like Scissors or something like or Eeyore. It doesn't even come close to being the same musically.
You're right. I think just purely.
What Slipknot song has like piano and like someone like blissfully singing in falsetto over it?
No, you're
at least
totally
right. At least from the early
I think
days.
Just purely from a non-musical sense, like from the aesthetic, how
couldn't
influential they are.
Couldn't agree more.
But so who's a better shout?
Musically, I'd go anyone that sounds like they're a bit more like tongue.
Alpha Wolf.
Yeah, that's the first band I was thinking, but I'm thinking more bands like Sworn In. I feel like because Sworn In have that lyrical sort of desperation, a bit more messy, a bit more chaotic, whereas Alpha Wolf's a bit more like Alpha Wolf, Dealer, Throne. They're more polished and more like they don't feel as like rough around the edges. They're like super well produced, super high tech videos and stuff. Whereas Slipknot's like dirty and dark, like horror, like aesthetic, like disgusting. Like he used to go out on stage with like blood, like pig blood pouring down him and stuff like that. Like you wouldn't catch Alpha Wolf or like Throne doing that. They're like the more refined version of it. Whereas someone like Sworn In, maybe knocked loose musically a little bit, but not a bit more. But actually, real quick to say, Slipknot kind of were like I would argue like they had a lot of inspiration from hardcore. Their guitar riffs are very similar to stuff like Earth Crisis and like bands like that. Like you have slightly heavier, but a lot of those like open 134 135 riffs are very, very hardcore, and Slipknot has that, especially in their first album, very like sort of hardcore vibes.
It's inspired, but like it's still, they carve their own unique sound, and the vocals are very different as well. They're so much more like he uses like false chord, like hardcore's more shouting, more messy.
Ruin his voice. Like.
No, he's got an amazing voice. Had an amazing voice. But yeah, I think we've established that they were sort of the spark that influenced Sworn In. I think are such an important crucial band to the heavy new metalcore scene. Like, I don't even know what to call it. Like, no one can decide on the name. Is it newcore, pissedcore? Pissedcore is an actual thing. Like people say, moshcore. People call like Alpha Wolf.
I don't think the name matters that much.
But like to actually reference it, like what do you say? Like I say Sworn In, but people don't even know Sworn In
just say
anymore.
Heavy music, hardcore metal. The thing
is so vague.
But the thing is, people. If you're talking to people who don't know the nuances.
I'm not talking to people that don't know. I'm talking to people that know.
Yeah, exactly. Just name a band then. Just be like Alpha Wolf, Dealer vibe. They'll know what you mean.
Yeah, but every other like subgenre that's like got a bit of traction, like even Beatdown, which isn't even as big. Like Sworn In were lumped with Beatdown, and that was like slow. It was very identifiable.
I feel like nowadays every band could be fit into 7 genres. I think genres have got so specific they almost don't really matter anymore. Back in the day, you were metal, and then you were metalcore, and then you were hardcore. And outside of that, you were just like, who cares? But like now, it's like you talk about the difference between new metalcore, modern metalcore, I don't know, metal pop, like hardcore, melodic hardcore, metallic hardcore. They're pretty much the same fucking thing across like half of those bands will sound like 90% the same, and then maybe have like 5 to 10% different. The difference between like a metalcore band and like a metallic maybe not metallic hardcore band, but like a metalcore band and even like a deathcore band, it's like the singing like makes the difference, for example. Or like some people called like almost a radio rock song, like Bad Omens Just Pretend is like a metalcore song, and that's like radio rock now. And then on the flip side, you've got like Miss Mayo and Killswitch and old metalcore.
There's always a reason though, man. If you track back to it, like the reason Bad Omens were called metalcore is because they were molded in metalcore. They have metalcore albums, the same as Bring Me, the same. But as even then,
bands. That metalcore is like. All my point really is like you can get so granular with genres
evolved now
to an extent. Well, exactly, that's my point. It gets so granular to a point where it doesn't. It's almost quicker to just describe the type of music rather than describe the genre. If you talk to someone who knows about music, you talk about someone who says like certain type of vocals, guitar riffs that go like heavy riffy like hardcore stuff without like loads of like chords in the chorus and stuff like that.
I see your point, but I think there's like hundreds, thousands of bands.
Pissedcore.
The genres are really like key in kind of finding bands that you like,
maybe,
and sort of like good for describing bands, and like people like to put bands in genres, and like
but if someone said moshcore, like, as someone who listens to like an insane amount of heavy music,
I did research, like I'd never heard of moshcore.
If someone said to me, this band's a moshcore band, I literally go, what the fuck are you talking about? I go, what band do they sound like? I always say to people, if they go, it's like a hardcore band, I'm like, who do they sound like? Because even hardcore can mean stick to your guns, it can mean Not Loose, it can mean Earth Crisis. Who go, that's a metalcore band? I go, who do they sound like? Because that can mean Killswitch Engage, Bring Me the Horizon, fucking maybe even Alpha Wolf, like Polaris. Like I just asked them what other band do they sound like?
I think that's all well and good, but like certain genres and new genres are catching on, and then the word
do you think they
means something. Yeah, I think that like you hear modern metal all the time. That's quite a big one. New metalcore is quite a big one now. Those words, the more people use them, the more meaning they have, and the more kind of like you can put bands in different genres.
I think modern metal. I often say modern metal to people like as I
hate the term modern metal. It's so vague.
I say it just to mean I'm not into fucking Iron Maiden and Metallica. That's like the way I use it.
I think modern metal is actually an umbrella term for all bands that are metalcore, hardcore, new metalcore.
Exactly
they kind of all come into that. So if you don't want to use those subgenres, that's fine. Modern metal is probably the best one to use. And that's why whenever anyone asks what music I was like, my band was like, our band was like, I'd say, we're like Linkin Park, because they're the biggest band.
Exactly.
That's almost like an umbrella term as well. But no, it's not super important, the name or anything, but I just love like any bands that are sort of post Sworn In. Like you had like back in the day, you had like Barrier, Gift Giver, like Villains, Youth Forever, like all those bands that were like had that scene, and I just wanted a name to call it because it's such a distinct sound. You can't just say bands that sound like Sworn In, like it's just not
that's what I use
language.
But you're right. It would be good to have a genre.
I feel like it needs like Gent has a genre. That's true, and like that's there's a lot of bands that are like that, probably more than pissedcore, but
maybe let's not call it pissedcore.
The bands that are leading that at the moment, obviously Alpha Wolf are probably the biggest one, and then Dealer, who are closely associated.
I think what are they called? Throne. I like the Throne, the big ones.
The Spotify plants.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have like not gamed the system, because they are a good band. They deserve the success, but they have like propelled themselves to the top on that genre. Yeah, and it's becoming a popular genre.
Do you reckon
as
they're bigger than Alpha Wolf now?
It's hard to say.
I don't think they are.
I reckon they've been around a lot less time. So I reckon give them a couple of albums, they probably will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Alpha Wolf have more like they've got more of a name for themselves. But I think Throne are hotter as a band. I think they're more exciting. I think people are more excited to see them live.
Alpha Wolf's latest album didn't do as well as their other ones.
They had like Akudama, which is like a massive like they had a hit which like really did them well. They're still huge. Don't get me wrong in terms of that like.
Do you hear they had a song that released today with Bless the Fool?
Who?
Bless the Fool?
No, Bless the Fool. I mean,
Alpha Wolf.
Alpha Wolf.
Alpha Wolf, Bless the Fool.
Really?
Yeah. It's okay, but it's like it's not what I want to hear from Alpha Wolf. I feel like that's Bless the Fool being like, come and give us some fucking cool points.
Yeah. I didn't realize Bless the Fool was still a band.
Yeah, they're coming back now.
Oh, no. Didn't they already come back and then they come back again?
You know, he's a busy guy. And that's another guy Tyler Smith produces.
Oh yes, I knew that. Yeah.
So yeah, you know the production's going to be good on that. But yeah, like didn't Alpha Wolf do an album with someone else recently as well? Was it
album? They did an EP with Holding Absence.
That was it. Holding Absence. Like that was kind of weird.
That EP actually slaps.
I really like that.
I like how they've gone like I might get this wrong, but I swear they had one song that's like it's like an Alpha Wolf song with like a sung chorus from Holding Absence. Then Holding Absence have like a song that sounds very much like a Holding Absence song, and then the track 2 and 3 sort of sound like a perfect blend of the two. There's a really interesting way of doing like a split EP because you've got like what would Alpha Wolf sound like if they had a Holding Absence feature? What would a Holding Absence sound like if they had an Alpha Wolf feature? And then what would they sound like if they were like the same band basically? And I really rate that EP. That was
too,
really
man.
creative.
I didn't like all of them, but there was one or two that I really liked.
You probably had the Alpha Wolf songs that had like Holding Absence,
But like I think that normally when bands try that stuff, the split stuff, it doesn't normally work out. But I think that landed well, and maybe Bless the Fool heard that and they were like, we want a bit of that
as well.
So I think Alpha Wolf are probably the biggest in the scene of that. Another shout out to Graphic Nature. I know one of the guys in that band. They won an HMA the other day for best new breakthrough album. I think they are killing it at the moment in the pissedcore scene. I was going to call it pissedcore now because I kind of like
to make it catch on.
It's going to catch on, man.
Pissedcore.
It actually is a thing. I think it was people tried to call it sadcore, and then that turned to like
sadcore,
SoundCloud stuff. But no, I prefer pissedcore.
Yeah, let's. I'm happy to stick with pissedcore and stop talking about genres. I'll call it pissedcore if we can stop discussing genres.
Deal.
But yeah, man, I think that genre right now, funnily enough, and I think this is quite an interesting thing, is how popular it is despite how inaccessible you think it would be. It's crazy to me how bands that have no singing are becoming some of the bigger bands in the alternative world. Now they're not getting to like Bad Omen, Sleep Token, or even like mainstream level success, but like the fact that a band like Alpha Wolf can be like the size they are, I mean, I hate to always be the one to bring this up, but like I know Knock Loose aren't that level, but the fact that Knock Loose have like a hit fucking album and can play Coachella without any singing in their music, it's insane to me that like bands that don't have singing are becoming this popular. Back when I started listening to that sort of music, like I guess Slipknot's first album has some singing, but for the most part it's like they have songs that don't have any singing, for example, or like minimal singing.
I think Slipknot's the big one because like even now that stuff's still heavy, and the fact they got so big,
it's
like,
insane.
With no singing.
That's exactly what I'm saying, and the fact that now that's sort of coming
back.
The
aesthetic definitely helps.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that like that's getting like not mainstream, but that's like becoming like bands like Throne and stuff. And even like 5-6 years ago, I feel like a lot of people into the more metalcore scene of like Piss of Air and Sleeping with Sirens, whatever, wouldn't maybe 10 years ago wouldn't dare listen to something like Throne. But now I feel like those same sort of people who are into the more like Octane core type bands, the Wage Wars, whatever, also really fuck with the heavy stuff. So I think it's a really good sign of heavy music in general. The fact that people can now make a living off music that doesn't have singing in it is insane.
I think it's because, you know, like before, the way you discover bands is through like your mate or your sibling or through Kerrang as we found. Whereas now music is so much more accessible that you're exposed to all different kinds of music. Like you don't just get into one genre, like I like country or I like new metal. It's like you are able to see like, oh, what the fuck's that, deathcore, like that's interesting. People are like desensitized to heavy music a bit more now, I think, and I think that's why people are getting on board with more heavy bands.
No, I'd agree with that.
But yeah, I love pissedcore, and I'm excited to see what Throne do and Alpha Wolf do. I think they just need like one of those bands, like maybe Throne just need to put out like a really iconic album, like the Death Card was back in the day. Like do you remember the fucking Death Card hoodie as well?
That was the origin of pissedcore.
I had one of them back in the day. Like, it's fucking,
it was. I didn't have one, but I remember how iconic it was.
people
Everyone
got like tattoos of it, like the mandala sort of design and shit. Yeah. Do you see he started reprinting those?
Yeah,
as well?
I did see that. That's interesting. Like
my band actually requested a feature of Tyler, so he still
really?
technically owes me a feature.
Really?
Yeah.
Should we cancel your band one and put it on the Metal Lounge instead?
Man.
Can we
We'll get him as a fucking guest.
Oh, do you reckon if we write like a scream like about the Metal Lounge, he'll like do that instead?
You never know.
You should ask him.
Yeah. I should do.
How was that, reaching out to him and like getting that? I don't know much. Is he doing anything at the moment apart from features?
I follow him on Instagram, and like he goes off Instagram and on and off all the time. And I saw he was back on. He put on his story like, I'm doing vocal features. Like, hit me up if you're interested. So I reached out to him, was like, yo man, like I'd love to get you on board. So I told my band, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. And we'd never done a feature before, so we're kind of new to it. And I was like, I asked some friends, and they were like, you should draw up a contract, like just in case. And I sent him the contract, and he was like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like I've done like 100 vocal features. I've never been asked to sign a contract. He got like a bit funny about it. Yeah. And I was like, sorry man, like it's just what we've decided we want. It was a little bit awkward, but like I like faxed him the Yo, Tyler, what's your fax number?
No wonder he was pissed off about it. In my 100 times guessed it, I've never been faxed something before.
You know what I mean? I got him to like sign it.
You faxed it,
and I faxed it.
Yeah. Did he sign it?
Yeah, he signed it.
Okay,
yeah. I'll still hold him accountable.
So he doesn't do the feature, then you've got him. Then how are you planning on enforcing a contract that you wrote?
I don't know, to be honest.
Notarized by a lawyer in someone from a different country.
We covered it, man. It was a thorough document.
All right, cool. Man.
But yeah, no, I hope we actually get that feature at some point. That would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it'd be sick. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard him do much recently, so it'd be cool to hear him with a mate.
He still does features every now and again. I like checked out some of his more recent ones. He's got an
from bands who didn't ask him to do
iconic voice.
Yeah, man. No, I love it. I love that album. It's absolutely iconic.
Yeah.
The other one that reminds me, just like slightly off topic, but the whole merch thing being like its own identity was the. Do you remember when While She Sleeps had their first album out, and that WSS like shirt, all the variations of it? Like I remember people used to say they were more like a clothing brand than a band at that point, because people love that design. People
didn't even listen to them. They were like, yo, what's that WSS? Like, I want that. Like chavs and fucking spoons. Yo, what's that WSS?
It was literally like the
hottest.
Yo,
link me one of them WSS, man.
In like 2010, 11, it was like
the height of fashion.
The hottest alt thing you could buy.
Hardcore's always been quite cool. I know they're not a hardcore band, but they were a bit more hardcore back then in the hardcore scene.
DIY metalcore, like
it's always been cool to kind of rep that merch. Like Your Demise were another one as well. And do you remember a band called Last Witness? They had the Witness beanies. They were all the rage as well. Yeah. If you guys know any other like iconic, culturally important merch, let us know. I'd love to see what else we've missed.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into new metalcore, pissedcore, whatever you want to call it.
It's pisscore.
It's okay, it's pisscore. Let us know what you want to call it. Let us know if you've got a piss kink. Get ready to join us next time as we dive into more topics on the Metal Lounge. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.